Alright guys, so today I decided I was going to talk a little bit about something else, so I thought I'd talk about the same topic or whatever. So I decided to talk about this whole OnlyFans, online digital prostitution or whatever. And the reality is, it comes down to one thing. This whole porn industry, OnlyFans, whatever. Maybe not OnlyFans since it typically applies to, older men or whatever. But, if you look at this essentially what is free online porn, you'll realize that at the end of the day, right, these guys, these dudes out there, it is a cheap alternative. Not only is it a cheap alternative, but it is a safer alternative than, actually going out and trying to have some kind of physical connection with an actual woman. Because at the end of the day, guys, what's stopping a man from, saying going to visit a hooker? Right? Well, what's stopping him? Really? I mean, hey, he's horny. He wants to get it off. He wants to get off, right? He wants to bust his rocks. Why not? Why shouldn't he go visit a prostitute? Why shouldn't he go visit, an escort or whatever? Well, what's stopping him? Okay, yeah, there's the money part, right? There's the money part, okay. He feels like it might not be worth the money. He may not have the money. He just doesn't want to get ripped off, A lot of these guys, they don't want to get fucking ripped off. There's no guarantee that, she won't just kick him out and do whatever. Especially if this guy doesn't have much experience with women or with socializing much in general. A lot of these younger guys, they don't have much experience with this shit. They don't. And so these men, most of them are just kind of turning a blind eye to this shit altogether. Now, that's for better and worse. A lot of men, they're not protecting women anymore. Even if they, even something as saying hello to a woman, right? Saying, hey, what's up? How's it going? Or if you see a woman in distress, like someone's attacking her, she's being robbed, she lost her money, she needs help. She's probably not going to help her. She's probably just going to walk the other direction. Now, is this for better and worse? Sure, better and worse, right? Everything is for better and worse. That's how you got to look at it. This is not a manosphere thing. This is not whatever. This is just the kind of, the mindset you got to have. Always got to view things in a positive light. Every problem is an opportunity in disguise. So with that being said, I decided to, go into this more. Is this almost empty? I decided to go into this more. I decided to go into this more by sort of, how do I say it? I'll make an analogy to my life experience. Me, I am a millennial, although I'm an older millennial. So I'm not going to be an 80s millennial. I'm more of a mid-millennial. Right? So I turned 18 in 2012 sharp. That was it, right? May of 2012, actually July 2012, May of 2012, I graduate high school. A few months later, I'm 18. Just like that. I'm 18 years old. I'm legally an adult. Now, me being legally an adult, right? So regardless of whether I'm legally an adult or not, at the time when I was going to elementary, junior high, all throughout high school, and most of my early college, I socialized. I socialized a lot. I had a lot of experience with, talking to people, talking to men, talking to women, having real life interactions. Even a lot of early Gen Z guys, they've experienced this. A lot of early Gen Z women, they experience this stuff. I was with a few early Gen Z women, a few of them. Usually it was going to be, more so around my age, sometimes on the older side, just because of, demographics and all that. But, and the fact that I was young at the time, so there just weren't that many women, my age or younger than me, so it kind of cuts out the options. Anyways, I apologize for the sudden pause. I was been really stuffy lately. So, oh shit, I'm not gonna edit that part out. With a lot of these, these Gen Z guys, whatever, you know, these younger Gen Z guys, even some of these Gen Alpha guys, they don't have the experience. So me, I have not only experience with women, but I also have experience in dealing with men, particularly the men in her life. Because let's face it, guys, you know, traditionally and all throughout history, if you're a guy, right? Once you hit puberty, once your voice cracks and you start getting, hair on your face, hair on your chest and all that, you are a military age male. So, hey, you're a dude, you got all this testosterone in you, you're horny, you're willing to take risks, and you don't really have much at stake. You know, you are by default a potential threat and a potential liability. That's how it is. And so women, right, they have always relied on men as being the protectors in society. That's how it is. That's how it always was. And a woman was an extension of a man's honor, right? And this was a common psyop tactic back then, guys. Like dudes, they would go, and if they were to invade another country, if they wanted to tear down another man, they would go after his honor and his pride. How do they do that? Take his woman, take his daughter, take, the women that are under his watch, take them, and, they're going to defile them. They're going to, they're going to, they're going to rape them, all kinds of shit. That was part of it. So is that necessarily a good thing? That, under this traditional patriarchal system, that a woman is a man's honor. She's an extension of his honor, and she's his pride and joy and whatever. You kill a guy, whatever, right? So be it. Now, if you hurt his woman, you touch his woman, well, then, then heaven have mercy on you. He will stop at no end, and so neither will the other men in that village, that community. Nowadays, and back then there was that reciprocity. Nowadays, there isn't that reciprocity. And I'm not saying this is a bad thing. If anything, in many ways, it is a good thing. It is a good thing that women now have their own agency, and that a woman is not part of a man's, she's not part of his honor or his pride or, their justice or whatever. That's mostly an older, the older generations. And in many ways, the older generation sucks. They suck. They do. They grew up in a different time period in which things were things were different. Their belief systems and their methods of dealing with the world around them, it is obsolete. It just doesn't work, which is not compatible with this place and time. And that's a general problem with the world, especially the United States. They got all this fucking stupid ass bureaucracy, and they want to hoard all the money and shit. And I mean, are these guys insecure in many ways? Yeah, probably. So you see a lot of these younger guys, they're not going on OnlyFans. They don't even see the point of any of it at all. It's like, okay, saying going out to actually have an interaction with the woman, it's too risky, right? OnlyFans and porn and whatever, it's not the real thing. It's clothes. I mean, it's kind of there, but you're not touching a woman. You're not like, touching her skin, making skin contact, sleeping with her, being inside her pussy or whatever, but her vagina. No, you're not doing any of that shit. You're not. You're just staring at pictures. And I mean, to be honest, you can go on Google Images for free and just, fucking pull up images there. It's not that difficult, guys, Just go on Google Images, pull up some pictures. I don't know, fucking go on, what do they call it? Not Pornhub. I think Pornhub you have to pay for now, if I'm not mistaken. It's similar to OnlyFans, but I think it's just like an all-around subscription like YouTube. Or, or like a SoundCloud or whatever the fuck. Nowadays, it's a bit different. It is a bit different, OnlyFans is different. That is what it is. So, let's just take, for instance, for me. I have experience with women. I also have experience in dealing with other men that are in a woman's vicinity and that do uphold this, old tradition of chivalry and honor, blah, blah, blah. All that, that bullshit. So I know not only how to, talk to a woman, how to be with the woman, how to read a woman, if I'm going to have sex with her or whatever, if I'm going to have, some kind of, intimacy with her, whatever that is, I also know how to deal with the other men in her life, right? Like I said before, right? I'm a military age male. Now, I was in the military. Yes, I was actually in the U.S. Army. I didn't do much, but, regardless, I am a military aged male. A male, I'm in my 30s, especially if I'm with a woman, she's an attractive woman. That's it. A lot of other guys, they see, hey, this guy's fucking single. The single guy, he looks kind of suspicious. He's just kind of a, like, I typically don't present myself as like this, this kind of like high class, good guy. I typically present myself as, a lot of people see me as kind of this low down thug. I mean, for better and worse. And that is because I have history and I know people, I have history of being with people, like actually, being a bodyguard, being a confidant. I'm going to say as more confidant. This was all like hush hush. It wasn't anything official. And I was working with men. Yes, they were men in intelligence. These were men, they were intel assets. They were, some of them, could have possibly been intel agents. Some of these guys, they were involved in trafficking and, smuggling arms, drugs. Like, I knew these guys personally. And so I knew how to handle these kind of situations. And with these young guys, it's a catch-22. If you don't have the experience, starting from, like my age, I was like 12, 13 years old, I mean, when I was like 10 years old, there's, girls were flirting with me. When I was in elementary school, junior high, they were flirting with me. Mind you, I didn't lose my virginity until, a bit later on after high school. But, I mean, the fact that I had experience with them. I could talk to women. I could talk to people and make direct eye contact with them. Nowadays, if you make direct eye contact with a woman, especially if that woman is like, in her 20s and below, like someone like me, dude, like that's gonna freak them the fuck out. They're not gonna be okay with that. A lot of men are afraid. These younger men, they're afraid to make eye contact as well. That is how it is, So, they don't have that experience, so they're not going to be able to go and get more experience. It's a catch-22. I'm not saying this is a good or bad thing. This is all for better and worse, right? With the good comes the bad, and with the bad comes the good. And every problem is, an opportunity in disguise, and every blessing is, is a problem in disguise, depending on how you see it and what you do with it. So, that's what it is for right now. Take care. Bye-bye. I'm gonna, if I can hit that little stop button, and